Who are we? What is this? And why should you listen? This is the premiere episode of The Northeast Scene. What's up, everybody? This is the premiere episode of the Northeast Scene podcast. And I'm Keith.
And I'm Tom.
What's up? The two of us run the Instagram account, The Northeast Scene. So please follow it. That's the NE Scene on Instagram. It's like a collection of old show flyers and ticket stubs and show videos I've taken over the years and that Tommy's taken over the years, kind of a collective. See, I had this large collection of
and the funny part is I never collected anything. Like 90% of what's on the site is literally just Keith archiving things and doing the right thing, and it's me being like, oh yeah, I found an old ISIS ticket stub here.
And I'm glad that I held on to that stuff, because this whole thing started because I had this big collection of high 8 tapes. The stuff I filmed back in the day, and I think it's gone. I think they all got thrown out, and it breaks my heart every day. It's my fault. It's my fault. I left them at my old house, and
they just got trashed.
I never went and picked them up. So this is kind of like, all right, I got to start documenting what I have now, as kind of
just a way to preserve it. I mean, because that's a lot of what we do, is like thinking about like how that old stuff kind of affects us today, because we still go back to that thing. Like I still go back and think about that stuff and go, wow, that was a wild time, or like, oh, that was really fun, or like, oh wait, that went really wrong there for a while. And looking through those things, at least for me, helps me remember. Like I can look at a show bill and I'll go, oh my God, I remember talking to people outside that show, or wait, I remember there was a fight at that show, or I remember there was this type of thing. Like that's huge, because it sparks all of that stuff. Or even if I just see, there was one I saw a few weeks ago where I saw Blue Skies Fade on a show bill, and I was like, oh my God, I haven't thought of that name in 15 years. And then as soon as I thought of it, I was like, oh, Trihampton YMCA and all the other shows that went along with it. And it's this flood of memories that come back. And I mean, for the life of me, I think most of it is like, it's all 99% of it's positive. And it's something that I want to make sure that, like, you and I have talked about this before. It's been just hardcore in general has been such a formative part of our lives.
Oh yeah.
And it's just,
maybe the most formative.
I think for sure.
It gave me my ideals. It gave me my best friends. It gave me purpose in wanting to perform music and all that stuff. So, So yeah, it's like an amends. Circling back, the account is an amends to myself for fucking throwing away the tapes. I'm like, let me start the archiving now, and I won't fuck it up again and have everything thrown away. So, the question we like to start with for everybody, Tommy, give us the rundown of your introduction to hardcore and the scene in general.
Okay, so this all started probably my 6th grade year. My older sister, so I have 2 sisters and 3 stepsisters that I all grew up with, and one of my sisters, her and I were very close growing up, and she moved away to college and when I was in 6th grade, and I remember being like devastated, because she was like everything to me. She was the person that my mom worked a lot of times. My dad, had passed away when I was younger, and my sister was the person that was so influential on, she was the one that got me into skateboarding. She was the one, and when she moved away to Kutztown, she made friends with a lot of guys that were in straight edge bands. So she was friends with, their name, the Bartos. They were both from Emmaus. They were into skateboarding, but they were also in a straight edge band called Atari. And I think it was in 7th grade, I was missing my sister super bad. And my mom said, I trust your sister enough that you can go up there and I'll drop you off for the day and you can spend the night with your sister. And Next thing I knew, my sister was taking me to a straight edge show, and I got to see Atari and a bunch of like, local like kind of Pocono area, or not Pocono area, but like that scene that was at Kutztown at the time. And from then I remember I bought, because my sister had given me money and she was like, hey, here, go buy some records. And I was just floored. Like looking through that stuff, I'd never seen.
What were your intro records?
I don't even know what it was called.
I still remember mine. Hatebreed, Satisfaction, Inside Out, and let's see, Turmoil, I think.
Okay.
The first Turmoil LP.
Oh, the first time. So
Yeah.
I the one I remember distinctly, I still have it. I bought the Quicksand.
Yes.
It was like an EP that had Kennedy's head made out of an apple.
That was the one on Rev. Yeah.
So that was what I bought there that day. I also bought Atari's 7-inch that they had. And from then it was a weekly thing of I would go and try and visit my sister. Like it was always just like, I want to see more of this. And I think the biggest thing that really got me into hardcore was so like that was my intro to the music side of it. Going to shows with my sister was so like, it was so much fun that I was like, I got to find this around here. And in 10th grade, I got on the bus and there was this little chubby kid sitting across from me. We were sitting there talking about something because we had a long bus ride. Both of us lived in like the Southampton area, and we went to LaSalle College High School in Winmore. So our bus ride was like a little bit under an hour every morning and every afternoon. And I remember he was like, hey, what are you listening to? And at that point in time, I was listening to the Minor Threat discography. And he was like, oh, you're into punk rock? And we started like chatting. And the next thing I knew, we were starting a band. And that's really where like him and I started playing music together and started playing shows. And that's when I was like, we played at Trihampton YMCA, Southampton Youth Center, and we started playing these shows. And I was like, oh my God, there's this whole scene of kids like that are literally within a few miles of my house.
So was that Audience of One the first band?
So no.
You were in another band.
Yeah, so it wasn't
I
even
had
called...
no idea.
So it wasn't
what was
even...
the first band?
Well, depending on the week. Anthony and I changed the name all the time because we would
but it was you and Anthony.
It was just Anthony and I at first.
How was it? Wait, was it a two-piece?
Yeah.
Who drummed?
Me.
So you drummed and he played guitar?
Yeah.
Really?
In my basement.
Wow.
With a ridiculous, like a child's drum set, like one of those like little kid junior ones. Like the bass drum was only like 15 inches or something like that. It was a joke to us. Like, I mean, but it was funny because we had at that point gotten into like probably about midway through Anthony's freshman year and my sophomore year, we had really gotten into like crust and grindcore stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember conversations where we were like, dude, these kids are making noise and we can make this, like we can do that.
That's what I thought of that band as more like not screamo what it is today.
Yeah.
Like back then, like that
it
kind
was
of stuff.
It was literally Anthony and I had found a record company out of Wisconsin called Bovine Records. Mm-hmm. And they were putting out things like Cattle Press, Agents of Satan, Noothgrush, all that type of stuff.
Noothgrush, I remember
it was
that.
just like some wild stuff, and it was just like really what we started doing was just we got a catalog from them. And I think we had originally got it from Siren Records in Doylestown, and we just started ordering all this grind stuff. We found a drummer at school, this guy, Evan Madden, who actually I had a really funny run-in where he works at Kung Fu Necktie now and is good friends with our mutual friend, Doug Sablik. So Evan became the original drummer, and Evan was very technically proficient. He was the main person in the competition band. He was the main person in the jazz band. He was he was a phenomenal drummer, but he was very interested in things like Slayer. At that point in time, he had started getting into things like Emperor and Enslaved and a lot of the newer black metal type of stuff that was coming out, and we all got together and started making music. And the fun part is that we had no idea what we were doing.
Right. As many bands don't when they first start out. I know I did.
Anthony was at school, and I don't know what he was doing after school, but he got on the bus in the afternoon, and he was like fired up. And he used to do this thing where he would literally crouch in the corner of the one seat. So we'd be on the same row of seats in the bus, but like separated by the aisle. And he would do it consistently because the bus driver wasn't paying attention. He would crouch in the corner of where he was seated and literally lunge at me and slam me into the wall. And
Oh my God.
I heard him prepping the one day to jump at me because he was like trying to get somebody's attention. Like, look, I'm going to jump on Tommy again. And I turned around and I put my foot up at just the right time. And I kicked him right in the chest. And I remember he sat down for a second, like kind of caught his breath, and then coughed and like a handful of blood. Like I really kicked him pretty hard.
Ouch.
And he was like, oh my God, I don't know what just happened. Why would you do that? I'm like, why would you hit me? Like, why would you do that? Like, I'm completely sitting here by myself, not paying attention. Like, why would you do that? But that was really like, yeah, we started because of our mutual interest in just punk rock. And it evolved into us really getting into like grind and crust, and we started this band.
And that's what I remember Audience of One being. That's kind of where our stories intersect.
Yeah.
I was friends with Mike and Pat, and Pat kind of took me under his wing, and I was just getting into hardcore and going to shows and all that stuff. And
just for context, Mike Shaw from This Day Forward and Pat McCormick doing like booking and stuff like that. Yeah, just to...
Yes. Shout out, gentlemen.
Yeah.
So I'm going to shows and getting involved in the local scene, and they're like, "Oh, Audience of One is playing all," you know. And I was like, "Okay." And I don't know where it was. It was some YMCA or something, somewhere out by where you lived by like Churchville.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I went, and I was blown away. You guys were really good. I'm telling you, back then, you had a buzz. Like, people liked seeing you. I remember like the guys from the end like requesting the video footage I had of you guys to like watch, and people were into you, and I was blown away. I remember it being a really intense show. I remember you didn't have a shirt on. You often did not play with a shirt on. And just I'm going to get it out there now. If our band ever happens, you have to wear a shirt, man.
Okay.
You just have to.
That's all right. I'm older now. I've grown out of that phase of my life where, you know.
So we were, Mike Shaw's house was like the center of the entire Bucks County scene.
Everything. It was everything.
It was weird thinking about it now because, like, you know, this is like my friend's house. I would just show up and walk in.
Unannounced.
Like,
Didn't
I lived
knock
there.
on the door, just walk in. And the nice part about going to the Shaws was it was consistently not just the Shaws. There was always Randy Weir, Mike Golan, Vadim, you, Mike and Gary Shaw, Marina, Tiff,
Everybody.
It was everybody from back then. You know, it was all those people, and there was something about...
We would talk about shows and bands and shows. The girls hated it because even the ones into the music, they were like, "Is this what we're going to do all night?" And we were like, "Yes."
This is consistent.
And then, you know, so we just kept kind of going to shows, and I didn't see you a ton. I don't remember you like a lot.
So I think that a large part of me getting involved in hardcore, I think there was a good portion of me that kind of shied away from like the social aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. In 7th grade, I had taken a scholarship test to go to LaSalle and had gotten a scholarship. And my mom was very, very serious about academics. Like anybody that knew my mom when I was younger, you know, she was a scary person. She's a wonderful human being and very loving, but my mother spent 20 years of her life working in a prison.
Oh,
Yeah, she's not a person to be trifled with. She also, you know, she raised all of us on her own with my dad not being around. So it was like, it was wild. Like, you know, I really wanted to make my mother proud. And I think a large part of being into punk rock and hardcore, it really, I think she saw it as like a step backwards. She saw LaSalle and my academics as like a means to an end. He's going to get a good job. He'll become a lawyer. Well, look how that turned out, you know, like.
Well, the lawyer thing didn't work out, but you've got a decent job.
I do. I love what I do. Like, but you know, at the time at 15, 16 years old, my mom really saw like, you know, you're going to play lacrosse, you're going to go to school, you're going to do well, like you're going to go to Villanova, you're going to go to a great school, and you're going to do well. And I think a lot of the social aspect revolved around, I spent a lot of time with just Anthony. Anthony and I really, because of proximity, we were so close. We weren't within walking distance of our house, but we could ride bikes to each other's houses for sure. And I think Anthony came from the same idea of like, you know, Anthony's grandfather was mayor of Philadelphia. There was this pedigree of like, you're going to do something not with this, like this petty, like punk rock was petty. It was like, this is it's a side interest. It's a phase. It's something you're going through and you're going to get over. And then it was like, no, like this is, I love this more than I love most everything in this world. Like it's.
Yeah. I never reached that stage where I was like, that's it. You know, there's been periods where it's been a little more dormant. Maybe when I was younger and got into partying and stuff, but like, this is what I listen to. I'm not gonna like start listening to fucking like the Beatles or something boring like that. Like I need people to be hurting each other to be enjoying myself.
I think that's another thing is like. When I went to college, I went to a school in Wilkes-Barre called King's College. And
yeah, so this is you went away to college.
Yeah.
And I think
I went away from hardcore.
Yeah, and I would only see you, I guess, during the summer or sometimes at shows.
Yeah.
We weren't like call each other up and hang out friends.
No.
But this is where things change. Now, you had an ex-girlfriend. Now, we won't say her name.
Oh, yeah.
Because we don't want to invoke any spirits.
No.
However, Tommy was away at college, and I became friends with her. And I started to like her.
Oh,
now,
I remember this now.
The smart thing to do would have just been to, like, not really address those feelings and say, I'm friends with her, I'm friends with him, let's move on. But I was young and stupid. So I told her friend told her, and then the cat was out of the bag. Now, this is where I remember having another significant interaction with you. And I was shocked at how mature you were. Because I remember you specific.
I'm pretty shocked. I don't remember this now.
Now, get this. We were on Instant Messenger, and you messaged me, and you're like, you said, I'll never forget this. You're like, you like her, okay. How could I get mad at you for liking her? Like, I like her. It would be weird for someone to not like her. And I don't know. Like, I was I was just a complete mess up until about 3 years ago. Like, I would have been like, oh, I'm never talking to this guy again, or say like I'm gonna beat him up, but I could never do it because I can't beat anybody up. Like, you know, it's just like, how do you remember that? Do you what?
I vaguely do remember. I don't remember the Instant Messenger conversation for sure, but I do remember it being like, oh, okay. Because my feeling was like, well, what is what it is. Like, if she likes him, or the other way around, like I saw like, I think that was kind of the point in my life where I could already see that relationship was kind of winding down as it was, because I was away at school. She had just gotten into a really good school up in Boston. And she was going to be moving away, and it was like, dude, this is going to be, you know, we're separated by 400 plus miles. It's going to be a ridiculous time to try and commute. We're in college. Like, why don't we just kind of call it quits? But I think that was also the point in time where this thing was happening, where it was like, you know, I couldn't take it personally because, again, like what you said was like, I liked her too. Like, I could see she had so many redeeming qualities. She was fun to be around. She was pretty. She was really smart. Like, it was very like, and the other thing that I really did enjoy was at the time, I mean, I still am, but I really was into skateboarding. Like, really, like that That was my Friday nights. That was my Saturday mornings. That was my Saturday afternoon. Like, that was my, I'm going to go skate. And she was just so supportive of it. She was always really like, oh, that's cool. I'll come and watch. Or, all right, yeah, no, I'll see you afterwards. Or I'll come and pick you up from the spot when you're done. Just call, like, just have somebody call me. Or like, I'll come and pick you up at 8 o'clock. Like, that kind of thing. We'll go out to the movies. That was huge, because I think the other thing with that was I guess with her, I knew that we really liked each other. So it was like, well, if she likes him more than me, like, good for her. Like, I trusted, I really like, I mean, I guess this was kind of the naivete of like, I knew that, like, regardless of what I thought, like, her emotions were hers, and no amount of
That's so mature.
Well, at 37 now, looking back on it, I don't know. I don't remember being that mature when I was that young.
I remember shortly after that, you were hanging out with Mike, the other Mike. And
wait, which Mike? Shaw?
Mike M.
Oh, okay,
yes.
yeah.
And you.
Oh, Lord.
And you were like, hey, we're hanging out at my house. Do you want to come over? And I was because I knew
we were going to beat you up.
Yeah, I knew you guys were wild. And I was like, this is a sting operation to beat me up for revenge.
McGonagall and I are going to jump you
in
my backyard.
Yes. And because I'm paranoid and, so I was like, oh, I can't make it. But I doubt that was what was going to happen.
No, absolutely not. I think especially with Mike was wild. He did have times where he was like too much to deal with sometimes, because he's just an intense person. He still is.
Yes.
But
so I just flashed back. I remember we hung out sometimes. I remember we were hanging out at your ex's house, and then we drove back to my house to get like a bass and guitar, and we were hanging out like all night. Like there was sometimes like that.
There was, yeah. I do remember that we were at her house over in Yardley. I do remember this, and there was a couple kids from South Jersey there. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that? Like,
no.
Oh my God! So it was that dude. I want to say his name was Joe, but that dude had come over, and we were all just like partying and hanging out. Her parents had gone away for an extended period of time, and when I say extended, I mean like they were gone for like 2 weeks or something like that. So that house became like a go-to. Like, she lives in this nice big house. She had a pool table. There was booze there. Like, it was very fun.
It was a nice house.
It was really nice. The thing that I remember about you was you were always a fixture at the Shaws. Like, when I was at the Shaws, you were there. I don't think I can't even count how many times I've been there, but I don't ever remember being there without you being there.
Yes, I think my involvement in hardcore kind of coalesced with them being a band. And when they stopped, I stopped for a little while. I never stopped listening to it, but I don't know, I didn't think I went to as many shows, and I didn't really like reignite till later. So let's jump ahead. We reconnected after you were done college.
Yeah.
In like 2004. Still remember it. You messaged me on MySpace.
Oh, Lord. Yeah.
That dates us. And you're like, hey, we should get together. And then we got together at the Great American.
Oh, yeah. The pub over at Street Road Pub.
And I remember, like, it was with my girlfriend at the time. It was me and her and you. And we just drank a lot, and
how could you not?
Yeah, and I don't know. It was
their happy hour from 10 o'clock till 2. It was 10 till 12. Wasn't that it? 10 till 12 was $2 Long Island iced teas.
That's just criminal.
It was.
That we would go in there and drink like $100 worth of booze. The tab would be like $5.
Oh my, yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised more bad didn't happen as a result of that. Well, a bunch of people got fired.
Yeah,
I remember that.
There was a rash of firings. There was also a handful of There's a handful of DUIs that came out of that place as well.
That place is closed now, right?
It
We're
is.
not blowing anybody up, right?
No.
Right.
It's actually being reopened now with the worst name in possible history. It's called Quaker Steak and Lube.
Oh God.
Yeah, like so like Quaker Steak, like the oil, like so like they call it Quaker Steak. So it's like, but no one wants to go eat.
Is it a restaurant?
It's a fucking restaurant.
It's a restaurant called Quaker Steak and Lube.
That's what the sign says.
Dude, that can't be.
It is. Do you want to go somewhere to eat that the word lube is in the name? Like nobody, like I don't go like let's go eat at the diarrhea place. Like this is an awful name to include in your the naming your restaurant. Like somebody should have seen that a mile away and been like, why don't we just call it Quaker Steak?
Oh,
but
God.
the lube part was just brutal. But yeah, no. So that became a fixture of like that's what we did. We just hung out there. That was our Thursday nights for a long time.
And Wednesday nights. And Friday nights.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Friday and Saturday nights for sure. But it was definitely like a Thursday night thing.
I can't believe. Well, I mean, there's countless times in my life I can't believe I lived through, but that era is one of them.
Yeah.
So we started hanging out more when you got back from college, and then, when Rich and I were doing party promotion.
Oh yeah, that's right. At Ruba. Yeah, with Ruba, that was great.
You're around for a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in the Survivor house.
Yes,
with Doug, you were around for a lot of that.
Yeah,
a lot of hanging out.
Because that's when they got the Survivor house, that was like, I remember being down there. That was pretty much every weekend. Was like for me was like go hang out with Bobby and Doug. Go to Atlantis. Go party. Go to different places. Just go hang out. That was just such a fun time because it was like. I mean, it was really before that neighborhood had completely changed over to like, dudes with beards and flannels.
Yeah.
And
it was still, I mean, parts of it are still wild, but like nothing like it is now.
No, I remember the first night I think I stayed down there. And of course, every time I went down there, I stayed down. There was no way I was driving home from anything like that. I'd sitting out front, and at the time I was smoking. I walked out on the front stoop and I was having a cigarette, and being from like suburban Philadelphia, I was used to the ice cream truck coming around, but the pizza truck came by.
Oh God,
at
I remember that now.
1 o'clock in the morning, and it's just a dude with it's a goddamn ice cream truck, and the guy's literally just selling slices of pizza.
Yeah,
it was amazing. I was like,
there would be a loud bell. I never once had that pizza. I just couldn't fathom buying pizza from a truck.
It was pretty, especially at 1 o'clock in the morning.
You've had it?
Oh yeah.
Is it good?
Yeah, it was delicious. I mean, like from what I can remember, which was very little, but
Yeah.
I do remember buying 2 slices and getting a soda. I got a can of Coke and 2 slices, and I think the total was $3.50. Like it was
good.
Insanely cheap, and I had been drinking, so everything was delicious.
So how did we've hung out fairly regularly since 2006, I'd say.
Yeah.
Not every day.
No.
But how did we transition into like talking every day? Do you remember?
No, I really don't. And I think a lot of it came down to like I had moved. So after I was done college, I had started working. My main career has been in education. So I had always worked in schools teaching. And the first job I had gotten was teaching in an alternative school, so kids who had been kicked out of regular public schools. And I remember starting to talk to you specifically about, with our kind of group of people, a lot of us didn't have regular careers. Musicians, bartenders, like they had, they were either chasing some type of dream or they were doing something that wasn't very, like we were, shirt and tie kind of guys.
Yes,
and,
that's still to this day.
Yeah,
there are days when I'm like, should I just move back to Philly and like just try to play music and like bartend or like something, like, because I don't know. It seems awesome to do what you want to do all the time. I mean, there's no security, but I still contemplate it a lot.
I think there was a large part of that was I lived the regular, normal, everyday guy life of 9 to 5 working. I was teaching science at the time, and my weekends was me, playing pretend and pretending I was that person. The nice part was that I was making decent money. Then I could go down there and party my ass off and hang out and do whatever I wanted for 2 days.
Yes.
Crash on Doug's couch and, sleep there. And that was our lives. And I think a lot of it came down to it was, being in Philly, there's so many different things you can do with just the nightlife and just being like, let's go to shows. Like that was another thing that really got me. Like when I was in college, Wilkes-Barre only had a couple really big venues.
It was Home Base, right?
Yeah, Home Base. This guy, Bob Mack, ran.
I remember him.
Bob Mack was a really, really nice guy.
He DJ'd one of my parties.
He was a really nice guy. He was very, very polite to me. He was. I had done a radio show on King's College Radio on Friday nights, and I would do like punk, hardcore, metal. Like all just those three kind of like thrown together and just kind of mix through stuff and talk a little bit in between. The nice part is that with going to college, I met a good deal of people that had never really been exposed to hardcore. So this is the other thing is I'm kind of a closeted, kind of a meathead when it comes to stuff like this.
Yes, you are.
So I've always been vaguely athletic. Not like insane.
You guys should see him. He's giant. He was very skinny like I am back in the day when we were kids, and he's giant now. I would not want to get into an altercation with him. I just wouldn't.
So a large part of that came from I started playing. I'd always played lacrosse, and then when I went to college, I hadn't thought about playing anymore. It was a Division III team. There wasn't much interest in it, and I made friends with this kid named Chris Riley, and he lived up on the 5th floor in my building. And King's College it's a Catholic university, so dormitories are separated by sex. So there's a boys' dorm and a girls' dorm. So I lived in the boys' dorm. Riley lived above me, and I remember he was one of the first people that came up to me and was like, "Yo, you should we have a lacrosse team here, play lacrosse." So I started playing, and one of the things that we thought was really funny was we would play music when we would come out on the field, and the whole idea is you would play like the most obnoxious thing ever to kind of like put people off their game. Like especially I remember we used to play a school from central Pennsylvania called Messiah. It was a Christian university, and when I say Christian, I mean like these dudes were like, everybody had the long hair, looking like Jesus. Like super nice guys. The most polite team I've ever played.
They're Christian. They have to be nice.
They were so nice. But we used to do stuff to kind of throw them off their game. And one of the things that came out was like we would start playing. Like I remember the one day we came out to ISIS's Sea of Red.
Dude, that is like
over the PA in a large stadium, and it's so confusing because it starts out with that little girl's voice.
Yeah, the sample, Sea of Red.
Yeah, when was I away?
That's one of like the all-time classic riffs. I remember we were at that ISIS show at the Truck, and like I had never heard that song, and I was I was on acid and I was whacked. I didn't know what was. There was like a fight breaking out next to me. And I just remember that. I just remember hearing that riff like permeating through the air, and then finally like 8 years later, I actually listened to the record, and I was like, this is one of the best songs I've ever heard.
Crushing. So that's one of the things that really helped me kind of feel a little bit more at home in college was. My friend Chris Riley, my friend Paul Moran, my friend Chuck Moran, oddly they are not related, just another set of Irish Catholic kids.
There's a lot of us.
There's a lot of us running around that are into the same goofy shit. So we really started like kind of like talking about music and just trading music, and a lot of the stuff that Chris really kind of gravitated towards was heavier music that he had never heard before. And it was really cool because he was like this. I remember the girls at school used to call him the God. Like he was he's a handsome dude. And
I remember that.
He was like really, really, he was like handsome. He was well dressed.
He still is.
He was the captain of the lacrosse team. Like it was just everything about him was like he was the. If it was an 80s movie, he was the guy with the Letterman jacket that
with
was
the
shitty.
sweater tied around the neck. Be like, he was the antagonist.
Yeah.
He was the guy like making someone's life hell. But he's nice. He's not.
He's
the nicest person.
But in the context of that, like he literally is. He's chasing the Karate Kid around the fucking gymnasium with the goddamn skeleton uniforms on. Like he's
Johnny Lawrence.
Yeah. So I didn't even know the name. That's so good. So one of the things that I think. I started taking him to shows at Cafe Metro, and that's where actually you've posted a couple of the pictures of.
Yes.
Riley
Thank you,
taken.
Chris, for submitting those and others.
That Chris had taken at Cafe Metro of A Life Once Lost, and he was just, for him, I think that first seeing it, especially like hardcore like that, was shocking. But the other thing that he really enjoyed was like the kind of camaraderie, the brotherhood of it, and the connection he always used to make was like it's like a team. Like it was like our team. We were these guys that all banded together around a single common goal. Like,
that's what people said. That's what people always said, even who weren't into the music. They said they really like the community and the camaraderie of it, and I definitely agree with that. That's probably my favorite part because, like we were mentioning earlier, I didn't like who I was before I got into this music. I was concerned with petty things, like stupid things. I didn't know what my beliefs were, and this community, this music has shaped my entire being and pointed me in the right direction, given me my ideals, given me purpose. Even now, we're doing this thing. Like it is just always brings me back around, and I'm forever grateful for that. So, before we continue, let me break in here and say that's kind of the purpose of this whole thing, is to make that community again. That's why we're doing the Instagram page. I guess I'll make a Twitter eventually. I just don't want to right now because I'm on the fucking Instagram so much now, much to the chagrin of my girlfriend and my friends who I go out to eat with and myself. I'm on it a lot. I've put a lot of time into it. I just don't have time for two things right now. So maybe there will be a Twitter eventually, not right now. But reach out to us, the NE Scene on Instagram. Reach out to us through email, northeastscene@gmail.com. We want to hear from you too. Because we want to hear about the classic venue in your town that's still there or no longer is. We want to hear crazy stories from your scene. We'll change names to protect the innocent and innocent.
Yeah.
We want to hear about bands and tours you went on and tour stories. Like, we want to hear all that stuff. We're going to be offering up some of our own. We're going to have some interviews with people from our scene. We just want to keep building on this thing. So again, the NE Scene on Instagram or northeastscene@gmail.com. Reach out to us, email us, get in touch with us. We want to hear from you.
I can't stress enough. That's one of the things that like draws me back to a lot of the things, especially on Instagram or even like things I'm part of on Facebook, like Hardcore Merch Swap, like that kind of stuff.
All these pages. I discovered this whole community that I love. So while we're on this subject, check out Delaware 90s Hardcore. That is a page similar to ours, and he's doing this whole tape conversion thing, old show tapes, Tim Morris tapes. They're doing what I wish I was doing, but I threw out my fucking tapes like an idiot. But it's Delaware 90S Hardcore. That's a great page.
Is it Hardcore or HC?
One of those.
Okay, yeah. So just search it because it is one of those ones that I consistently go back to.
That page is great.
And the nice part is they do stuff like that I enjoy, where he'll just like post things like, "Hey, just introduce yourselves," like because it really is like the whole idea behind this is that it's a community and just people in general who have. I think that hardcore provides a place for those who don't feel like they fit in anywhere.
That's why I got involved with it. I had friends, but like I just got kicked around my whole life and never felt like I had anywhere to go, and and I've always been into music. Like I've always been into music since as young as I can remember. And here's a good question. First show. All right, this is good. Actually, my first show, I think, was at the Shaw House. That was the first This Day Forward show, actually. And I remember running into a guy from my high school. And, and he didn't say, like, hey, Keith, how's it going? Or, hey, good to see you. He's like, what are you doing here? And I was like, hanging out. First significant show that I remember, it was at Middlesex County College. This is what we'll do. This is how did we get hooked. This is how I got hooked. First show, big show, Middlesex County College in Jersey. It was For the Love of, Turmoil, Dillinger Escape Plan, Converge. There was more bands, but I can't remember. Now, keep in mind, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And everyone's like, Dillinger, we got to see Dillinger. And I'm like, okay, I'm standing right up front. Right up front. I've never seen this band. I've never heard this band. I have no idea what's going to happen. They start playing. The place explodes. There's guitars. The guy is swinging. Ben is just
hitting people.
Yeah,
he's not even playing anymore.
He's swinging the guitar right in my face. People are jumping on top of my head. There's two giant guys dressed as clowns just pummeling people. There was blood all over the floor. Someone drew a pentagram in it.
Oh, yeah.
I was hooked. I was hooked. Did you ever see that movie Green Room?
No.
There's a scene where they're like playing. There's a punk rock band and they're playing and it's like slow motion when they're playing and someone stage dives and there's like this uplifting music playing. It was like that moment.
It was that epiphany
for me.
of like,
I was hooked.
This is where I belong.
I was hooked. And from then on, it was just a never-ending pursuit of like, I remember back in the day, it was like a big deal. Like, how long have you been into hardcore? And like, how many CDs do you have?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it was everyone or just me, but like, I was like, I have to have the most CDs. And I used to like count the date I got into hardcore. I'm like, I can't wait until I'm into hardcore for like 5 years. Then I'll be like, I'll have more clout than everybody else, like dumb shit like that. But that was like my turning point. And I didn't really like the music at first because it was like too much screaming. But I remember hearing in Mike Schall's car, I remember hearing Program Behind, the Cave-In song.
Cave-In, yeah.
And they have like that singing part at the end.
Yeah.
Right then I was like, oh, I could get into this.
Yeah. So
that was, I got into hardcore like the late 90s metallic boom.
Yeah.
The big three, the 3 C's, Converge, Cave-In, Coalesce. So I don't, that's like my starting point. So I listen to a lot of that. I don't go too much further. There's some classic stuff I like, but I don't know. But that's my sweet spot. So give me your first show where you got hooked.
All right, my first show where I got hooked. So my first show ever that my sister took me to when I think I was in 5th grade, Warrington Skating Rink.
Yes.
Ween.
That's not hardcore though.
Okay, but this is my first show, so I went to that and I was like, "Wow, this is really cool," because there was a lot of people there. It was the Warrington Skating Rink. It was some benefit to, I guess, save the place or something like that. But Ween played, and I remember being like, "I really like live music." I thought that was really cool.
Okay.
But that first show I went to with my sister was Atari and some other straight edge bands from Kutztown. The show that really got me into hardcore, Anthony and I went to a place in Warminster called. I think it was called Auto Styling Incorporated, and Dillinger played.
Ooh.
So
wait, was that the garage?
Yes. So
did you see that flyer on Instagram recently?
I did. I actually saw a couple other ones from Auto Styling that I was at that one too. It was really close to our houses, so
Dillinger got you too.
Dillinger was one of that was the band that I remember being so enamored with. Like, it's chaos.
It was scary.
It was, that was the other thing was like, yes, there is this like kind of brotherhood or camaraderie that goes along with being at shows, but that there was also a real feeling of this is genuinely dangerous.
Yes. I still love that aspect of it.
Especially, Auto Styling was a weird place because it was literally, I'm not exactly sure who started with that venue, but it definitely was an auto body shop. They tried their best to kind of keep things at a minimum in terms of like the tools weren't out or anything like that. But during Dillinger, somebody picked up a tire, started swinging a tire around. I found the video on YouTube. Actually,
I remember that.
Anthony found the video and texted me and said, "Yo, check out this video." I think it was 97, maybe 98. It was at Auto Styling. I don't remember exactly the year of it, but he was like, "Oh, do you see us?" And I looked at it and I was like, "Oh no." I watched through the video and I thought I saw a glimpse of me for a second. And he texted me back. He was like, "Idiot, look at the thumbnail." And literally, if you look at the thumbnail, it's like the front of the stage with Dillinger. And you can see me clearly, like standing right there. I have a white shirt on. I have green army pants that I got from I. Goldberg in Philly.
That was, and I remember you sent me that video. The hardcore kid uniform back then was white t-shirt,
Yep.
gelled hair,
Mm-hmm.
and green cargo pants or like green cargo shorts or
camo.
tan.
Or camo.
Yeah,
or camo or tan or khaki.
Yeah. Like the white T-shirt thing was like
running shoes.
Yeah.
You could wear like that was like the one that really struck me was just everybody had gray New Balances for a while or the Saucony.
Sauconys. Yeah. That was like some late 90s, early 2000s shit.
That's like what everybody had, and it was like it was very funny. Is like you can still date things by like what people are wearing. I watched a video of A Life Once Lost at Palenque Park not that long ago. The amount of track jackets,
oh my god,
in the audience is fucking staggering. Like you're just looking at it like, holy shit! Did everybody just go to Old Navy and get a track jacket that day?
Yes,
like, it was
or Express.
Or Express.
Yeah, I miss my Express track jacket still. Remember, and like Dickies, like hardcore kids thought Dickies were like fashionable for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
had them.
So it was a weird thing. So Anthony and I remember, we got into very much like the super like the fastcore kind of things like Charles Bronson.
Yes.
And I remember the first time we saw the guys from Charles Bronson, we saw a picture of the dudes from Charles Bronson, and the next day I think Anthony cut his bangs, like the Spock haircut.
Oh, that was a weird.
It was very funny. Was I vividly remember this he came over the house, or I was over actually at my ex-girlfriend's house.
Yes.
And him and Gregory Itzen, who Greg actually ended up playing an Audience of One for a period of time. He was on the recording for the EP, but Greg and him came over, and both of them had identical haircuts. They had literally just gone into Greg's bathroom with like not even like real like hair cutting. like they literally just cut their hair like straight across in the front, and everybody looked like Mr. Spock there for a hot minute. Like
that was a weird phase.
Extra small shirts, way too tight pants.
Hair dye. I dyed my hair black for like 6 years. It was such a pain in the ass.
I never dyed my hair. I always had my head shaved for the most part.
Yeah.
From the time I was probably about 16, 17, I really started cutting my hair, and a lot of it, hate to go back to like meathead stuff, was like I did not like having my hair like all matted inside my helmet. So like there was a large part of it was just like that kind of thing. The other thing was that I was never one for like when my hair grew out. My hair was so thick. You would never know now because I'm like unbelievably bald. But my hair was so thick that it did that thing where when it grew to a certain length, the end just curled up. So I kind of ended up with this, as my mom said, I tried to cut my hair the one time and she was like, "You look like Prince Valiant from the comics." And I was
God.
Ugh, you know what? It was like the He-Man cut. It was so dumb. And I remember really being like, I grew my hair out, and I think it was maybe a few days later. I got up in the morning, looked at my hair, and in the bathroom that morning, like I shaved my head. I was like, I'm just not doing this anymore. I was like, I can't be doing this. This is so ridiculous. It was too much maintenance, and on top of that, I really didn't like the way it looked, and it was. The funny part was like I remember I shaved my head and I showed up at my girlfriend's house at the time, and she was like, "Oh my God, you cut your hair," and I was like, "Oh,
kind of,
yeah." And she's like, "Oh my God, it looks so much better." It was like everybody wanted to say to like, "You look like a complete dork. Like, don't wear your hair like that," but nobody said anything. So like when I finally cut it, people were like, "Oh my God, you look so much better with your head shaved." I'm like, "Oh, thank God, man."
So the inception of this podcast, I remember, I would say the first moment without us knowing was, remember when I was going to the movies with Pat and we came by your house? We were going to stop by your house for a minute.
Oh my gosh.
And we ended up not going and just drinking and like telling stories about the old times.
Was this in Ben Salem? This is when
Yes.
this is the apartment in Ben Salem. Yeah, you guys were on your way to the movies. You called me and I said, yeah, come over. And I said, oh, here, let's make drinks. Like, if you guys are hanging out, let's make drinks. We'll sit around and play with the dog.
And we just sat around telling BS stories like this all night. So that was like phase 1.
Yeah.
Phase 2, I think after I made the Instagram, I was like, if we hit 1,000 followers, we'll do a podcast.
I do remember saying that.
And then being outside Kung Fu Necktie, talking to Pat.
Yeah, Pat Troxel and I.
We were like,
dude,
this is it.
There's so many funny stories, and especially not even just funny things, like things that were just kind of like moments in time that were just telling of like what the scene was like. Or it's just the preservation of those things is so important to me, just because it was a formative time in my life when I really kind of, like you said, that's where a lot of the things that, like, you look on your life and where it is presently and you go, wow, a lot of this in terms of my decision making, in terms of like where I am now, comes from hardcore. And I think like right now, so this is I'm entering my 8th year. I teach at a charter school. I feel like every day I get to go to work, I get to do something where I'm literally making a difference. And I think a lot of that came from me really wanting to, with the scene, it was always like give back. Like, it's not like, you know, like, yes, come and have fun, but like there was always that willingness of like, I'm going to set up a table, I'm going to make something, I'm going to book a show, I'm going to do this. Because without those people that were, you know, like people like Pat and Bobby Meadows, like without those people setting those shows up, a lot of this stuff would have never happened. I would have never been exposed. There were times where I would go to see a show just because I knew Bobby was doing it.
Yeah, if I knew they were doing the show, I would go even if I didn't know the bands. Yeah. Not something I would do today.
No.
However, back then it was good, and that, you know, that's what we want this thing to be. It's just a collective of scenes and stories, and we want to hear from you. So again, reach out to us, the NE Scene on Instagram or northeastscene@gmail.com. Talk to us. Yeah. We'll read your emails on the air and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's the other. That's one of the things.
And it doesn't just have to be the Northeast. Now,
no.
I am partial to the Northeast because the Northeast is the greatest. I've lived in Philly. I've lived in New York. We're in Center City, Philadelphia right now. I came down here and got a nice hotel room here so we could record this thing. Tommy lives outside of Philly. I live in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
so we gotta get in person to do this, but I'm glad I got down here to do it. But yeah, we want to hear from you. So what were you going to say?
No, I think getting back to like the kind of like participation part of this is, we don't care if you were in a band. We don't care if you were like, we want to hear what you got, like your experience with hardcore was, because
or is. Yeah. Oh yeah, and I forgot my point of before. We want to hear from people all over the place. It doesn't just have to be the Northeast.
Yeah,
I love California. I love the Midwest. I just want to live here.
Yeah.
So everybody, reach out.
I think one of the things with me that especially like resonated with, like, just I've always been a storyteller. I like telling stories. I think when people get to express to others like what their time was like in a certain place, you know, it's transformative. It really gets, people are searching for that thing.
I love stories of old scenes, like when you read about like the old Lower East Side CBGB stuff, or like out in California, like the whole Black Flag and all that stuff. We want to hear that stuff everywhere. Like those, I love old hardcore stories, old gang stories, fights, drugs. Again. Names will be changed to protect the innocent and not innocent. We don't want anything coming back on us. I don't like getting beaten up. No, it's not fun. Lord. It's happened. It has happened. I would like it to not happen again. But yeah, reach out to us.
Yeah, the vendettas through hardcore are always interesting ones that were, this. I always thought it was funny. It was like going to another place and they'd be like, oh yeah, this, insert ridiculous name crew runs this place, and you were like, you would see them show up and you're like, Hilarious, dude. It's like 17-year-olds with like dyed black hair and tight pants. Like I'm like in my head, I'm going like the meathead inside of me is like, I could beat every single one of these kids up. I'm not gonna like, they run nothing here. Like I could walk in here and like Godzilla and just stomp the shit out of everybody. I don't give a fuck. Like so that was really funny. Was, you know, these kids are in charge. It's like, are they? Like I always felt like, you know, this is what's that Italian thing? The mafioso, La Cosa Nostra, and like La Cosa Nostra stands for like, it's this thing of ours. And when that crew beef always came up of like this crew versus that crew, and it was like, bro, this is fucking our thing. Like you don't get to you don't get to monopolize this. You don't get to take this away from us. Literally, you are dealing with a group of mostly male who feel disenfranchised and feel kind of relegated to the fringes of society.
Yes.
They're kind of the last people you want to fuck with.
Exactly.
Especially when there's a huge number of them and they are literally bound together by things that they in their core believe in.
I'm glad I always kind of stayed out of trouble. And I tried to do that still.
But I think that was also for me the rebelliousness of hardcore became a big part of like I felt boxed in by like, you have to be good at school, you have to do well in sports, you have to be a part of this, you're going to get you're going to college on a scholarship, you're going to this, you know, private school, like you're going to do this. And hardcore was my way of being like, no, I'm not. no, I'm going to do this fun stuff with my friends. And on top of that, you felt part of something that was much larger than you, like greater.
And I still do. I look back on it and I'm like, I'm friends with a lot of bands I looked up to. I've gotten to play with some of these people. I've been on tours. Hopefully we'll be playing music still. That's to be determined. But you know what? It's awesome.
Yeah.
We don't know how often this thing is going to air, but once it's up, give us high ratings and comments on iTunes and Podbean or whatever the hell I upload this thing. Reach out through Instagram and email. Again, the Instagram is the NE Scene on Instagram, or email northeastscene@gmail.com. Reach out to us, tell us stories.
And then give us feedback on what you want to hear, like what you want to hear more of, what you want to hear. Like that was too much on the, you know, whatever. Like if we spend too much time on something, you know, let us know, like, so we can really kind of.
If you want to hear less of Tommy, I can certainly make that happen. Please let me know. And yeah, it's not just going to be us BSing. We've got some interviews lined up with some good friends of ours in the scene, and we want to get out there and interview other people too who we like. So get in touch. Yeah. So that's it. That's the first episode. Thank you, and
thanks, guys.
Talk to you soon.
Peace.